so-and-so gets promotion, and the reason is because, and this isn't universally true, it's not a law like gravity, but by and large, people who are liked and get along with others tend to get promoted or tend to get recognized more than the ones that work harder. Yeah, that's not universally true, but it's pretty accurate as far as what I've experienced.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And it is needed to be noted that in our lives, 1/3 of the day we spend at work, if not more. So those peoples that we work with, they are our secondary family, not the family that we have chosen. And we have to get along with them. And to put it in a more direct language is supervisors and managers, they don't have time to babysit. You have a task to do, and you are expected to do that task. If you don't understand something about the task, you're going to ask. You're going to ask your supervisor, your manager, your colleagues. You're going to learn more about what is it that you need more. It's not about whether you like it or not. And this is where...
If you get along with the others and meeting tasks.
Yes.
For instance, I know I had this tendency for a long time. My boss would say, "Can you do this? Do this?" Oh, well, and that's exactly what you're saying. It's not very emotionally intelligent to tell your boss, "Well, I'm kind of busy. It's going to make me work harder. I'm kind of."
Well,
I've done it. I'm guilty. I was just a guy. To this day, somebody will ask me way above me, say, "Have you got time to do this, this, this?" And my initial reaction is to say, "I'm too busy. I've got other stuff." And I gather myself and think, I probably shouldn't say no to somebody who's four people up the chain.
Yes, right? Yes. And the way I used to handle this kind of a situation, task on top of task on top of task on top of task, I would say, I would be happy to. This is what I have on my plate. Which one would you like me to prioritize? And that solved a lot of problems. And as soon as I would be finished with the task, then I would notify. And I said, okay, has the priority changed? Because priorities can change. Our bosses, they have bosses too. But I don't want to take away from self-awareness and emotional intelligence and keep it just at work, because this is not about at work. The reason people prioritize more of a self-development and personal growth and all of that, and neuro-linguistics techniques, not to mention that, the reason they attribute priority to that for at work is because they need to pay bills. If they don't pay bills, they're not going to have a home. They're not going to have, they need shelter, food, and clothing and all that. But the truth of the matter is that if we don't work on ourselves, not prioritizing, we have lots of different priorities, but without having personal emotional intelligence, you're not going to be able to have emotional intelligence at work. If you don't do personal growth and development, you're not going to be able to properly grow and develop at work. So this is something that a lot
or anywhere.
Yeah, well, yeah. This is something that a lot of people miss on. I mean, even the two books that I published, Creating Is Itself and Creating Is at Work, which book do you think sells more? Creating Is at Work. So emotional intelligence, it's not a luxury. It is a requirement. Yeah. And within this emotional intelligence, empathy has it's very, very important. And I want to stress on the word empathy because different people understand empathy in many different ways. Especially the spiritual community understand empathy as the ability to feel what others are feeling. And that might very well be true. But empathy and sympathy are very different things, right? So in keeping it in together with all of the areas, whether it's spirituality, whether it's personal development, whether it's psychotherapy, whether it's at work, whether it's whatever, not getting deep into a definition of one of these categories, empathy is a requirement of the emotional intelligence. And empathy, scientists have observed in study with monkeys that those monkeys that we have a higher deployment of mirror neurons would have a higher empathy. Now, understand we don't have the ability to go inside our brains and create mirror neurons by touch, right? But the way we have control and ability to create, so to speak, more mirror neurons in our brain to be deployed for the purpose of empathy, it is through learning, observing what the others are doing. Because this is how you develop mirror neurons. You know, in my mother language, in Romanian, they say about a job that about the job is not to be learned, but it's to be stolen. Doesn't sound good in English, but that means that the way you learn a job is by observing what the other are doing, and then you learn from that, and then you apply it. Right? And you're going to create more mirror neurons. So this is not the best example, but you know, when somebody is very angry and it's about to beat the hell out of you, your mirror neurons are going to be deploying very fast, and it's gonna counteract. You know, you want to punch them, they're going to punch you, right? So self-awareness, emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment, and put a little self-confidence in there that you are aware of an emotion, that you feel an emotion, and that emotion might or might not be expressed in an appropriate manner, right? Now, suppressing emotion is not the answer, but blurting out emotion is not the answer either. So when in a situation, respond appropriately, stating your position without arguing, and this becomes an art. This is where personal growth, personal development is going to take you. This is where hypnotherapy is going to take you, right? This is where coaching is going to take you. Like what I do with my clients, I always coach them to, when in a situation, more of a delicate situation, to make statements that do not use the word you. Yeah. If you, Randy, are to upset me now, I'm going to say, you, Randy, because of you. Instead of saying, Randy, I am feeling upset by what I've heard from the earlier words spoken. Didn't use the word you. It might not get to you quickly because you're not used to, I'm just using this example now, this is not about you.
Well,
it might not get to you quickly, but then if you don't get it, I'm going to say it again. Randy, I am feeling upset by the words I have just said that were spoken earlier.
yeah, and it's simple, but it's very, very profound because our minds tend to think, for whatever reason, that, well, if Randy hadn't said that, I wouldn't be upset. So, of course, it's his fault because he said it or did it.
Yeah.
So, how's it my fault that I'm upset? He is the one that forgot to bring home the blank or whatever. Why would he's the one who forgot my birthday. That's his fault. It's not me. So yeah, it's a very, very difficult concept to what helps for a lot of people. It's a very old theory. In fact, for some people, it goes back to the ancient Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is it's not that something makes us feel something. Me forgetting my spouse's birthday does not make her mad.
Mm-hmm.
She gets mad because that has happened. She filters it in her mind. It filters it as a bad thing. Then she gets angry. So it's her filter in their mind that creates the emotion, not the action. And why do we know this? Because somebody down the street, their husband or wife would forget the birthday and blow it off. They say, well, that's no big deal. They're just forgetful. They forget everything. They forget their own birthday. Well, why aren't they upset when my spouse is upset? Why aren't they as upset as my spouse? It's because they have a different filter.
Yes, you bring up an excellent point. This is something that
Very old theory.
It's very old theory, but it's very much underlined in NLP training.
Yeah.
So in NLP, we understand that every event that comes outside, from the outside, internal, is going to go through the filters. And this filters has three categories. Has deletion, generalization, and distortion. Well, first distortion, generalization, distortion, deletion. Because by the time the event and the mental processes go in and we go through these filters, they're going to get all connected into our system of beliefs and our system of values and our meta programs, which in a simple terms, they are processes. How do we process the external world? So,
what's an example of a generalization?
well, you brought a very good example of somebody getting upset that you forgot their birthday, and then also you brought a good example that this person will not be upset, and then this person will be upset. And then another good generalization, like you brought up in the last session we have, is that the men are supposed to provide and protect. That's a generalization. And
when they don't, it's bad.
Yes. And then another generalization, it's a woman supposed to cook, clean, and
nurture.
Yes, clean the house and do everything on a house. And men supposed to do none of that. Yes. So that's a generalization, right? And if somebody doesn't smile, like somebody would have a face like this because they're thinking about it and their face muscles are not here, but just regular face muscle, somebody would generalize that, oh, that person is angry. Well, no. That person might have an autoimmune neurological condition that makes their face drop.
And an even bigger generalization, those are good, those are excellent examples. And you can even go broader and say things shouldn't go wrong for me. Life should be basically easy. And one of the best examples we have of that now are the people that interview on television that are being driven from their homes, refugees, 3 million refugees they have now. Ukraine, and Syria, and Ronesia.
Ukraine,
Anyway,
Ukraine.
right.
Mhm.
Ukraine and who's the other one? That was, so anyway,
Syria.
yeah, Syria. Uh, they'll interview them, and their response is, "This is what we're stuck with now. Who knows what the future's going to be?" Whereas somewhere in their mind, they have a filter that says bad things happen, and we're going to try and overcome it. Other people might have bad shouldn't happen to me. I go out to get in my car to go to the doctor or wherever, go to the movies, and I have a flat tire. That's going to ruin my day. These people have lost their house and their belongings, and they're like, well, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I've heard them say that, those very words.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, you've heard them, huh?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And you bring out a good point. So this is how people generalize, distort, and delete. So people that are often faced in highly difficult, we cannot even begin to imagine what people, the refugees from war and leaving everything behind and barely a luggage with a few clothes and a kitty cat and a puppy dog and the kids with them go through and not having shelter and what they go through. And we need to bring out the attention of the basic human needs. The second level of the pyramid of basic human needs is shelter, being safety, having shelter. Before that, the very basic, the first layer of the pyramid of the human needs is its biological needs, which includes food and air and water and excretion, right? So it's you're right. Some of the people that get so emotional and they think that their day is ruined, the day is ruined because they had a flat tire, they can't get to work. That's mostly done out of fear because they feel, well, I'm not going to get on time, and then my boss is going to yell at me, and then I've already been late 10 times, and then the policy is that if I'm going to be late 12 times, I'm going to get fired.
Get fired, I'm going to lose my house and be on the street.
Yes, yeah. So reflecting, acknowledging that we have feelings. I cannot stress enough, acknowledge that we have feelings. Yeah, we have feelings. But those feelings, we don't have to express those feelings all the time, not verbally and not non-verbally. Yeah.
And we can, just like you said, we can understand what's causing it. What is it that makes me upset because I have a flat tire?
Yeah.
Or what is it that makes me upset for something else? We can understand and control that.
Yes.
That's the basis of a lot of therapy.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the control, because a lot of people don't like that word, before we get that, let's accept that we have a feeling. And that feeling might or might not be triggered, right? And trigger, it's another session that we're going to do things on triggers, because the same event might happen and different people respond to it differently. And that's the theory of relativity that Einstein so eloquently presented. So theory of relativity doesn't apply only to physical events. Theory of relativity applies to everything in life, and especially to emotions. You know, if you're about to insult me now, I would say, thank you very much. I would not be insulted. If you are to flatter me,
walk on stage and slap somebody?
No. you
sure?
troublemaker, you. No. I'm not gonna like it, but I have a choice. I need to remember to accept the feeling and then exercise my choice of not being offended, right? But then if I'm in a higher emotional arousal, which has happened in the last session we talked about, he happened to be, we're not going to mention names anymore, he happened to be in a higher emotional arousal, right?
Because why?
because we're not going to talk about that again because we talked about it last time. All right.
It's a good example.
Yeah. Well, some people, I mean, science has already discovered that some people are born with a higher emotional response as opposed to other people. So
Well, some people respond emotionally and do things they later deeply regret because they're not aware of what's going on. Their subconscious is in full mode, in a way that is not, that they think is protecting them when it's not.
yes.
And they're in full blown fight or flight mode, and they don't even know why.
Self-awareness comes in here, and a little bit.
And that's what hypnosis and hypnotherapy can help.
Oh, hypnotherapy, it will get you to the root of it very quickly. Because in hypnotherapy, we don't sit around asking you why, and we don't sit around asking the clients to go over the trauma over and over and then what happened, and then how'd you feel about that, and then what happened, and then how'd you feel about that. Client comes in and said, this is the problem. How can I work on it? Let's work on that a little bit. And even people that come in with wanting to quit smoking, that's not the reason they come in, right? So hypnotherapy is the oldest form of therapy. And Freud, that's how he arrived at psychoanalysis, from doing hypnotherapy on his cousin, right? And then people decided, oh, psychoanalysis is better than hypnotherapy. Well, it is useful. Everything is useful. All the science developed, everything is useful. So when you take concepts from the psychoanalysis and then you apply it with hypnosis, then wonders begin, because we do need to identify a little bit of the why. But why is not always the answer as how, HOW. How am I going to proceed forward? And this is what we're talking about tonight. The way and how you're going to proceed forward is sense your emotion, acknowledge you have an emotion, identify the facts, accept that you have an emotion, reflect upon the emotion you have, and then
Your thoughts. Reflect on your thoughts of the emotion.
yes, and then choose the appropriate response. Yeah. And on top of that, I would like to make the sentences that you're going to make, don't use the word you, because that is accusatory. And once we understand that everything is relative, the same, somebody may be offended by a compliment, so I might be uplifted by a compliment. We don't know. Everything is relative. So if you communicate to what bothers you, not what the other did.
I would do that in couples therapy, and it's really challenging because somebody would say, a husband or a wife, or two wives or husbands, they might say, like the spouse might say to one, well, that's just stupid. You're just making stupid points. And I'd say, no, now use the word I. Don't point and say you, say I. And they sit back and they say, well, okay, that's a good point, Randy. I wish you would stop saying stupid stuff. I'm like, no, that's not it.
The key is to tell them to never use the word you.
Yeah, that's true.
So that takes a lot of creativity, and there's a secret behind it, which I'm not going to disclose the other secrets behind it. But the key is, do not use the word you, especially in an argument. State your emotions, state your feelings, state your affect. How are you affected by what has happened, without using the word you? That becomes an art. And
oh yeah,
hypnotherapy is very, very good at teaching you this art, because a lot of people think that hypnotherapy is that you go to sleep and then you lose awareness and then blah, you know what's happening. That's not it at all. Not at all.
There are a lot of misconceptions about it. That's definitely right. It's not sleep, not losing misconceptions. You're not, you're totally aware. A lot of people forget, you know this, a lot of people forget or can't remember what was said because their mind drifts off. But that's not the same as, well, I'm out of control and, anything can happen.
Correct.
I'm totally in control.
Well, the conscious mind forgets what was said, but the
Right.
subconscious mind does not.
Right. And the conscious mind will pop back into awareness.
Yes. And conscious mind not needed as much as the subconscious mind, because where do all of these emotions and tragedies and suffering and pain, it gets stored in the subconscious mind. Everything gets stored in the subconscious mind. And this is why hypnotherapy, it's so productive, it's so effective, it works quickly, because we talk to the subconscious mind in a way in which subconscious mind begins to allow to express through the conscious mind in an appropriate manner.
I read something the other night. You probably read this before. So interesting. But people will say to a therapist or just anyone, I've been depressed my whole life. I'll be depressed until the day I die, and nothing's going to help. Well, what does the subconscious? How does the subconscious hear that? If I'm not depressed, then what? I'm dead. So the subconscious associates happiness or non-depression with being dead, because this person's thinking, I'll always be depressed the day I die. Yeah. So it's very interesting how the subconscious can misinterpret that and keep somebody from being happy because it's scared they're going to die.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yes. And also, I bet you that person that says that they're never going to be undepressed, they're always going to be depressed, I'm sure that they have a certain number of occurrences that they were happy and then bad things happened right after. And then an automatic mechanism says, well, if I'm happy, then I'm going to be punished for it. Therefore, I'm going to be depressed. Yeah. Because if I'm depressed and if I expect the worst, then maybe lesser than worse is going to happen. I'm not going to be so disappointed. Instead of being disappointed 100%, I'm going to be disappointed 60%. So a lot of people approach it like that, and it's not to say that it's their fault, because we're not talking about their fault. We're talking about what is it possible to do, because it is possible to rearrange these filters, to rearrange generalization, to rearrange distortion, to rearrange deletion, the way all of this is going to be plugged into your system of beliefs and system of values. And then after a while, you begin to recognize your processes. Yeah. And I notice people they change their diet. They go to a very strict diet, gluten-free or soy-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and a lot of keto diets that, where so many things you're not supposed to eat and stay away from it. In that process, they are learning so much more about themselves and about their emotion that no school can get you there faster to go over your processes. And then I have clients that they go, losing weight is very important to them. And then I have them go over and ask them, well, what was the thought before that, and the thought before that, and the thought before that, and what made you go reach for that? Because by the time you think and go reach and go take and you unpack and you put it in your mouth, there's so many different steps. And then they go,
yeah, exactly.
Then they go, oh, didn't think of it. Well, I said, no, you didn't think of it. But now you can think of it. But because if the instinct takes you there to go ahead and get that candy and you want to lose weight, you better stay away from candy and chocolate.
You're exactly right. I mean, that's exactly right. You're thinking, I'm starving, I'm hungry, I gotta go eat something, so I eat. You say, well, what brought you to that point? I don't know. I saw the piece of cake there and I couldn't resist. And you're right. There's many, many, many steps before that happens, but we ignore them, and it ends up our mind compresses it to where, well, I'm hungry, so I got to eat, as opposed to just like the steps you're saying. Okay, am I hungry? Can I wait a few minutes? So what happens when I'm hungry? What do I start thinking? What's next? I get up out of my chair. What do I do next? I go to the kitchen, et cetera, et cetera. So, and breaking that down, that's what, if I learn anything from people like Milton Erickson, one of the things is you break the patterns.
Yes.
And that's where if you can get into, that's what he would do. He would. There was a case I just read the other night where a woman wanted to lose weight. She'd been, she seesawed back and forth her whole life and wanted to get down to 130, never could get on to 150, 125, never could. Do you remember that case? Do you remember what he told him? Do you remember that?
They told him to gain 5 pounds, no more, no less.
20.
To gain 20 pounds, no more, no less.
And he in the description, I just read it in the book, My Voice Will Go With You. He says she got on her knees and begged him, because he did it as an ordeal. He said, I will get you down to 130 pounds, but you have to do exactly what I say. And then he used his doctor authority. I'm a doctor. These are medical orders. You have to do what I say. And she said, well, okay, doctor. Back in the 40s. You're the doctor. And he said, gain 20 pounds. And he says she got on her knees and begged him to get out of the money. But she did it. And of course, 6 months, 9 months later, she writes him a card. I'm down to 135. I'm married. I have kids. Everything's working.
Yes, because what Erickson did, he allowed her to have the extra weight and forced her to pay attention.
This broke the pattern.
Yes, broke the pattern, but paying attention is broken the pattern. The way you solve anything in your life is paying attention. Attention.
Paying attention to what she's eating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jay Haley had a case. Jay Haley had a whole book on that kind of therapy. It's called ordeal therapy. And it's breaking the patterns. And he writes it so brilliantly, but he had a guy who had this gigantic walrus mustache he was very proud of. It probably taken him 3 years to grow. Perfectly groomed. And he just couldn't motivate himself to go to work. And I won't take long. I won't draw this out. It's a hilarious case. And Jay Haley eventually had the therapist tell him, I can guarantee you that you will find a job in 1 month if you'll do exactly what I say. End of story. And of course, he had to think about it. Well, what are you going to tell me to do? Run down the street naked or something? And it was nothing like that at all. Nothing's going to embarrass anybody. Nothing horrible or illegal or immoral or damaging. But, and guess what he had the guy? Guess what he told the guy? Finally said, "Okay, I'll do it. What do you want me to do?" Jay Haley said, "Well, Jay Haley, the therapist he was supervising, said, either you get a job in 1 month, or you cut off that mustache." And the way Jay Haley rubbed it, he says the man immediately went like this to his mustache. He nearly brought it. It was so funny.
Yeah, I'm not giving up my mustache. That's very dear to me. That's my identity. I will not change my identity. Well, that's not how it goes.
That's kind of off track in terms of patterns, but it's still kind of a pattern breaking the pattern about how to motivate you to get a job. He did a good job too.
Yes, it is.
It's a very funny case.
Yes. Yes.
Jay Haley said he immediately went for Christmas. There was the danger of being cut off.
Yeah. Yeah. So once we get over reflection, acting, reflecting, accepting, identifying, acknowledging, sensing, and all of that, then we move to self-management when it comes to emotional intelligence. And self-management includes emotional control, transparency, adaptability, achievement, initiative, optimism, self-management, otherwise known as self-regulating, otherwise known as down-regulating, otherwise known as exercising control over your action. So that's not something we're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to talk about this next session. And it's been a pleasure having you here, Randy.
Well, it's been a pleasure me being here.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
Very smart. It's hard. I have to rush to keep up with you, but I'm doing my best.
All right, Randy. All right. Thank you. And we'll see you soon.